Hey guys, tonight we're exploring a story that everyone in history should know. The story is, why am I poorer than a Roman soldier? You get comfortable, take a moment, like the video, and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Why am I poorer than a Roman soldier? If someone told you that an ordinary Roman soldier who lived nearly 2,000 years ago might have been wealthier than you in some important ways, you would probably laugh. It sounds ridiculous. After all, you have electricity, the internet, smartphones, cars, supermarkets, and modern medicine. A Roman soldier had none of those things. So how could he possibly have been richer? The answer depends on what we really mean by wealth. Most people automatically think wealth means having more money. But history tells a different story. Real wealth is often measured by something much simpler. Can you afford food without worrying about tomorrow? Can you keep a roof over your head? Can you save part of your income? Can you support a family without living in constant fear of financial disaster? These questions matter far more than the latest technology. And once we begin comparing those answers, the world of ancient Rome suddenly doesn't seem as primitive as we imagine. Picture yourself as a young Roman recruit. You're around 20 years old. You have just joined one of the most powerful military forces the world has ever seen. Every day is exhausting. You wake before sunrise. You march for miles carrying heavy equipment. You train with swords and shields until your muscles ache. You build roads, dig defensive trenches, and construct forts wherever the army travels. Your life is difficult. But despite all that hardship, one thing is almost guaranteed. You are getting paid. You know where you will sleep tonight. You know where your next meal is coming from. You know the state is providing your military equipment. You know medical care is available if you are wounded. And if you complete your years of service, there is a real chance you will receive land or a retirement reward that could change your future forever. Now compare that with modern life. Millions of people wake up every morning, work 8, 10, or even 12 hours a day, only to watch nearly every dollar disappear before the month is over. Rent, mortgage payments, electricity, gas, water bills, internet, insurance, transportation, taxes, food, healthcare, education. The paycheck arrives, and then almost immediately disappears. Many people today earn more money than any Roman soldier ever imagined, yet they save less. They worry more, and they often feel trapped in an endless cycle of earning just enough to survive until the next paycheck. That is the mystery we are about to explore. The first mistake people make is assuming everyone in the ancient world was desperately poor. That isn't entirely true. Yes, poverty certainly existed. But the Roman Empire was also one of the richest economies in human history. Its trade routes stretched across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Ships carried grain from Egypt. Silver arrived from Spain. Wine came from Italy. Olive oil flowed across the Mediterranean. Luxury goods traveled from distant eastern kingdoms. Money moved through the empire on an enormous scale, and protecting all of that wealth required one thing above everything else: a professional army. Roman soldiers weren't simply fighters. They were employees of the world's greatest superpower. Without them, trade would collapse. taxes couldn't be collected. Borders would disappear. The empire itself would fall. Because of that, Roman emperors understood something very important. Happy soldiers were loyal soldiers, and loyal soldiers kept emperors alive. That meant soldiers received regular salaries. Sometimes those salaries increased under generous emperors. Sometimes they received massive cash bonuses whenever a new emperor took the throne. Imagine waking up one morning and discovering your government had deposited several months' worth of extra salary into your account, simply because a new leader had been crowned. That sounds unbelievable today. But something very similar happened several times in Roman history. Military loyalty was incredibly valuable, and emperors were willing to pay for it. Now here's where the comparison becomes even more interesting. The actual salary of a Roman soldier wasn't enormous. If we simply convert the numbers into today's currency, it doesn't look impressive at all. But that's the wrong comparison. Income means very little without considering expenses. Suppose one person earns $8,000 every month but spends $7,900 just to survive. Another person earns only $3,000 but spends just $1,500. Who is actually becoming wealthier? The second person. Because wealth isn't created by income alone. It's created by the gap between income and expenses. Roman soldiers had one enormous advantage. Many of their biggest expenses barely existed. Housing was provided. Military equipment was provided. Food was heavily supplied. Medical treatment was available through the military. Even clothing and essential gear were often issued as part of service. Think about modern housing costs for a moment. For millions of people around the world, rent or mortgage payments consume the largest portion of monthly income. Entire careers are built around paying for a place to live. Many people spend 30 years paying off a home loan. Some never truly own their homes at all. A Roman soldier didn't have to worry about monthly rent while serving. He lived inside military camps or forts. Yes, that meant less personal freedom. But financially, it removed one of the biggest burdens modern workers face. Then there's food. Walk into any grocery store today, and prices seem higher every year. Eggs, bread, meat, milk, vegetables. Every increase forces families to adjust their budgets. Roman soldiers certainly didn't enjoy luxury meals every day. Their diet was simple: grain, bread, cheese, olive oil, wine, sometimes meat, sometimes vegetables. It wasn't glamorous, but regular food supplies meant something incredibly valuable: predictability. Knowing your next meal is secure changes the way you think about life. Financial anxiety becomes smaller when survival itself is guaranteed. That doesn't mean Roman soldiers lived easy lives. Far from it. They faced brutal campaigns, long marches, dangerous frontiers, disease, harsh discipline, and the constant possibility of dying in battle. Their lives demanded sacrifice, but economically, many of them enjoyed a level of stability that surprises modern historians. As we continue this journey, we'll discover how Roman soldiers earned money, what they actually bought, how much land they could own, why retirement benefits mattered so much, and why someone living in the 21st century can sometimes feel poorer than a soldier who marched beneath Roman eagles 2,000 years ago. Because this story isn't really about Rome. It's about us. It's about why modern life often feels richer on the outside, while becoming more financially fragile underneath. By now, you might be wondering if we're giving Roman soldiers too much credit. After all, they lived in a world without electricity, clean running water in most places, antibiotics, or modern comforts. Surely no one would actually trade places with them, and that's true. Very few people today would choose to live in the Roman Empire instead of the modern world. But that isn't the question we're asking. The real question is much narrower and much more surprising. Why did so many Roman soldiers enjoy greater financial security than millions of hardworking people today? To answer that, we need to understand something about money that hasn't changed in 2,000 years. A paycheck means nothing by itself. What matters is purchasing power. Imagine earning $100,000 a year. That sounds impressive. But what if your rent costs $60,000? Healthcare costs another $15,000. Transportation takes $10,000. Taxes remove another large portion. Groceries keep getting more expensive. Insurance premiums rise every year. Suddenly, that six-figure salary doesn't feel very wealthy anymore. Now imagine earning far less, but having your housing covered, your meals supplied, your equipment provided, and many daily expenses removed completely. Which person is more likely to build savings? History gives us an interesting answer. Roman soldiers didn't become wealthy because they earned extraordinary salaries. They became financially stable because they had relatively few unavoidable expenses. This idea sounds simple, but it completely changes how we think about wealth. One of the greatest financial advantages a Roman soldier possessed was consistency. Today, many workers live with uncertainty. A company can announce layoffs overnight. Businesses close. Factories relocate. Entire industries disappear because of automation or economic recessions. One unexpected medical emergency can destroy years of savings. One missed paycheck can create serious financial problems. Roman military life was dangerous, but financially it was remarkably predictable. Every month followed a familiar pattern. Food arrived. Housing remained available. Military duties continued. The salary came according to the established system. That predictability allowed many soldiers to think beyond tomorrow. They could actually plan for the future. Modern economists often describe uncertainty as one of the greatest hidden costs in any economy. When people constantly worry about losing income, they spend less confidently, save differently, and experience far greater stress. The Romans understood this, even if they didn't describe it with modern economic language. An army filled with financially desperate soldiers was an unstable army. Satisfied soldiers were loyal soldiers. Loyal soldiers defended the empire. Another advantage came from something most people rarely think about. Roman soldiers usually didn't need to buy the tools required for their profession. Imagine becoming a carpenter today. You need expensive equipment. Imagine becoming a photographer. Thousands of dollars disappear on cameras and lenses. Construction workers buy protective gear. Truck drivers often face licensing costs. Many professions require workers to invest their own money before earning anything. A Roman soldier received weapons, armor, shields, and military equipment from the state. Yes, deductions sometimes came from their pay for certain supplies. But compared to many modern careers, the personal financial burden remained relatively low. The government had every reason to keep its army equipped. An unarmed soldier was useless. Now think about another modern expense that never seems to stop growing. Transportation. Many people spend hours every day driving to work. Fuel prices rise. Cars require maintenance. Insurance becomes more expensive. Public transportation costs money. Some workers spend thousands of dollars every year simply reaching the place where they earn their income. Roman soldiers traveled constantly, but the army organized those movements. Marches were part of military service itself. The logistics belonged to the military machine. The soldier wasn't individually calculating fuel costs or monthly vehicle payments. The empire carried much of that burden. Of course, Roman life had its own hardships. Campaigns could last for years. Winters were freezing, summers were brutally hot. Disease spread rapidly. Medical knowledge remained limited. Even experienced soldiers feared battle. Victory was never guaranteed. Death could arrive with a single arrow. Yet despite all those dangers, military service continued attracting recruits. Why? Because for many poor young men, joining the Roman army represented something incredibly valuable: opportunity. Outside the military, life could be far more uncertain. A farmer depended entirely on weather. One drought could destroy an entire year's harvest. One flood could wipe out everything. Small craftsmen competed constantly for customers. Merchants risked losing fortunes on dangerous trade routes. But inside the army, life followed rules, hard rules, strict rules, sometimes cruel rules, but rules that offered stability. That stability became one of Rome's greatest recruiting tools. There's another surprising benefit many people overlook: status. Today, countless workers feel invisible. No matter how hard they work, society barely notices. Roman soldiers occupied a respected position within the empire. They represented Roman authority. They enforced imperial law. They protected borders. Their uniforms carried prestige. People recognized them immediately. Respect doesn't directly pay bills. But throughout history, social status has often opened doors to opportunities, business relationships, marriage prospects, and future success after military service. Veterans frequently enjoyed advantages unavailable to ordinary civilians. Some settled in newly established Roman colonies, others received land, some entered local government. Military service became a stepping stone toward a better future. Compare that with modern reality. Millions of graduates leave universities carrying enormous student debt. They spend years repaying loans before they can begin building wealth. Many delay buying homes. Many postpone starting families. Some never escape those financial obligations. The Roman soldier certainly paid a price for his career. He sacrificed years of freedom. He accepted strict discipline. He risked death. But unlike many modern workers, he usually wasn't beginning adult life, buried beneath massive personal debt. Debt changes everything. Interest quietly drains wealth. Payments continue month after month. Years become decades. Financial freedom keeps moving further away. The Romans understood another timeless principle: a secure soldier fights better than a desperate one. That simple idea influenced military policy for centuries. As long as Rome remained strong, its army remained one of the best supported institutions in the ancient world. But there was another source of wealth that could completely transform a soldier's life. It wasn't salary. It wasn't free housing. It wasn't regular food. It was something far more exciting. Something that every Roman recruit secretly dreamed about, war itself. Because in the Roman Empire, victory didn't just expand territory. Sometimes victory made ordinary soldiers unexpectedly rich. If there was one thing that could completely change the life of an ordinary Roman soldier, it wasn't his monthly pay. It was victory. To us, war usually means destruction, tragedy, and enormous financial loss. Modern nations spend billions of dollars fighting wars, and ordinary soldiers rarely expect to return home with personal wealth. Ancient Rome worked differently. When Roman armies conquered a city, they often captured something just as valuable as territory: gold, silver, coins, livestock, weapons, jewelry, luxury goods, and sometimes enormous amounts of treasure. Although the exact distribution depended on the emperor and the commanding general, victorious campaigns often brought financial rewards to the soldiers who fought them. Imagine spending months marching across unfamiliar lands. You endure freezing winters, blazing summers, hunger, exhaustion, and constant danger. Then your army wins. Instead of receiving nothing more than another paycheck, you suddenly receive a share of the wealth captured during the campaign. For many Roman soldiers, this wasn't just a dream. It happened. Of course, the largest rewards usually went to emperors and generals. They claimed the greatest share of the treasure. But ordinary soldiers could also benefit. Sometimes those rewards equaled several years of normal pay, sometimes even more. This created an incredible incentive. Military success wasn't only about glory. It could dramatically improve a soldier's financial future. Today, very few professions offer anything comparable. Imagine if every successful project at work suddenly doubled your annual salary. Imagine if every major achievement brought life-changing bonuses. That almost never happens. For most people today, working harder doesn't necessarily lead to dramatically greater rewards. The Roman army operated differently. Success could be extremely profitable. Another fascinating part of Roman military life was the promise waiting at the end of service: retirement. Today, retirement has become one of the greatest financial worries in modern society. People spend decades wondering if they are saving enough. Will pensions still exist? Will investments grow? Will inflation destroy their savings? Will they ever stop working? These questions create enormous anxiety. Roman soldiers had their own version of retirement planning. A full military career often lasted around 20 to 25 years, depending on the period. That sounds like a long commitment, because it was. But completing that service usually came with significant rewards. Many veterans received land. Others received generous cash payments. Some settled in newly founded Roman colonies, established specifically for retired soldiers. Land meant opportunity. It meant farming. It meant producing food. It meant building wealth for future generations. Owning productive land in the ancient world was one of the greatest forms of financial security imaginable. Even today, real estate remains one of the most valuable assets people can own. The Romans understood this perfectly. Instead of simply thanking veterans for their service, they often gave them the opportunity to begin entirely new lives. That reward encouraged loyalty throughout military careers. A soldier wasn't only thinking about next month's salary. He was thinking about the future waiting beyond military life. Now compare that with many workers today. Someone may spend 40 years working for a company. Then retirement arrives. The monthly income suddenly drops. Healthcare expenses increase. Inflation continues rising. Savings disappear faster than expected. Some retirees even return to work because they cannot afford to stop. The Roman system certainly wasn't perfect. Not every emperor honored promises equally. Political instability sometimes delayed payments. Economic crises affected everyone, but the idea itself was remarkably advanced. Serve the state faithfully. Receive long-term security. That promise helped to build one of history's greatest military machines. There was another financial advantage hidden inside Roman military service: networking. Today, people often hear the phrase, "It's not just what you know, it's who you know." That idea isn't new. Roman soldiers served beside thousands of men. Some later became officers, some entered politics, some became wealthy landowners, some managed important provinces. Years spent together created lifelong relationships. Veterans frequently helped each other in business, farming, trade, and local government. Military service built social connections that lasted decades. Modern professionals call this networking. The Romans simply called it friendship forged through shared hardship. Those relationships could become just as valuable as money itself. Another important difference between Roman life and ours involves expectations. Modern society constantly encourages consumption. New phones, new cars, larger houses, designer clothing, luxury vacations. Advertising follows us everywhere. Every day, someone tells us happiness is one purchase away. Roman soldiers lived in a completely different environment. Their daily lives revolved around discipline, uniforms, simple meals, shared living quarters, strict routines. Luxury wasn't part of ordinary military life. As a result, many soldiers developed habits of saving rather than constant spending. Psychologists today often speak about lifestyle inflation. As income rises, spending usually rises even faster. People upgrade everything: a better apartment, a newer car, more expensive restaurants, more subscriptions, more monthly payments. Eventually, higher income creates very little additional wealth because expenses rise alongside it. Roman soldiers certainly enjoyed spending money during leave. They visited taverns, they gambled, they bought gifts, they celebrated victories. They were human. But military life naturally limited endless consumption. There simply weren't thousands of products competing for their attention every hour of every day. That difference matters more than we often realize. Modern economies depend on people spending. Roman military life rewarded restraint. Of course, none of this means Roman soldiers lived glamorous lives. Many never reached retirement. Some died far from home, others suffered permanent injuries. Campaigns could be unimaginably brutal. Entire legions disappeared in catastrophic defeats. Families mourned sons who never returned. The risks were real. The sacrifices were enormous. But when historians compare financial stability, not comfort, not technology, not life expectancy, but financial stability, they often discover something surprising. A disciplined Roman soldier could sometimes build a stronger financial foundation than many hardworking people living in wealthy countries today. And perhaps the biggest reason hasn't even appeared yet. Because behind every Roman paycheck, behind every retirement reward, behind every military victory, stood one incredible economic machine. An empire that collected taxes from millions of people across 3 continents. The wealth supporting every Roman soldier had to come from somewhere, and understanding where that money came from reveals another remarkable secret about why Rome remained powerful for so many centuries. Every salary has a source. Every government program has a cost. Every army must be funded. So where did Rome find the money to pay hundreds of thousands of soldiers, build roads across continents, construct massive forts, and still expand one of the greatest empires in history? The answer was simple. The empire collected wealth from almost every corner of the known world. As Roman territory expanded, new provinces became part of the imperial economy. These provinces paid taxes, farmers paid taxes, merchants paid taxes, mine owners paid taxes, ports collected customs duties, trade generated revenue, conquered kingdoms often paid tribute. The result was an enormous flow of money moving toward Rome. That money did not simply sit inside the emperor's treasury. A large portion of it flowed back into maintaining the empire. Roads, bridges, aqueducts, harbors, public buildings, and perhaps most importantly, the army. Roman leaders understood a lesson that many governments throughout history would later learn. A strong economy needed security. Merchants would not travel dangerous roads filled with bandits. Ships would not carry expensive cargo through waters controlled by pirates. Farmers could not produce food if enemy armies constantly invaded. The Roman military protected the very economy that paid its own wages. It became a cycle. The stronger the army became, the safer trade became. The safer trade became, the richer the empire became. The richer the empire became, the more soldiers it could afford. Few civilizations managed this cycle as successfully as Rome. Modern governments operate on similar principles. Taxes fund police. Taxes fund infrastructure. Taxes fund national defense. The difference is scale and complexity. Today's economies involve countless agencies, regulations, welfare systems, healthcare programs, pensions, education budgets, environmental protections, and thousands of other responsibilities. Rome had responsibilities too, but compared to modern governments, its administrative system was much smaller. That meant a greater share of state resources could support military power. For centuries, the Roman army remained one of the empire's highest priorities. There was another financial advantage Roman soldiers enjoyed that many people overlook. Inflation existed in the ancient world. Prices could rise, coins could lose value. Emperors sometimes reduced the silver content of Roman currency. Economic crises certainly occurred, but daily consumer life looked very different from ours. Think about your own monthly expenses. Streaming subscriptions, phone bills, internet service, software memberships, credit card payments, gym memberships, cloud storage, vehicle insurance, health insurance, life insurance, home insurance, online shopping, food delivery apps, digital entertainment. Every month, dozens of automatic payments quietly leave bank accounts around the world. Many people barely notice them anymore. Roman soldiers had nothing remotely comparable. Their financial lives were much simpler. Income arrived. Basic needs were largely covered. Savings, gambling, gifts, and occasional purchases made up much of their remaining spending. Simplicity creates financial clarity. Modern financial systems create complexity. Complexity often creates hidden costs. Then there's something even more important. Debt. Ancient Romans certainly borrowed money. Loans existed. Interest existed. Merchants borrowed. Landowners borrowed. Politicians borrowed. Debt was not a modern invention, but today's economy often encourages ordinary people to finance nearly everything. Cars, Homes, education, furniture, electronics, vacations, even everyday purchases sometimes end up on credit cards. Interest quietly transforms affordable items into expensive obligations. Month after month, year after year, money flows away without creating new wealth. Many financial experts argue that debt has become one of the greatest barriers preventing modern workers from becoming financially independent. Roman soldiers usually entered military life without carrying decades of educational debt. They weren't spending 20 years repaying university loans before beginning adult life. That difference alone could completely reshape a person's financial future. Imagine two 20-year-olds. The first begins working with no debt. The second begins with tens of thousands of dollars already owed. Even if both earn exactly the same salary, their futures immediately begin moving in different directions. One saves, the other repays. One invests, the other pays interest. Time magnifies those differences. The Romans may not have understood compound interest mathematically the way modern economists do, but they certainly understood the burden of debt. Now consider another invisible cost modern workers face. Job uncertainty. Entire industries can disappear within a decade. Technology changes rapidly. Artificial intelligence replaces certain tasks. Automation transforms factories. Economic recessions eliminate millions of jobs almost overnight. Workers constantly feel pressure to learn new skills just to remain employable. Roman soldiers worried about many things: enemy attacks, disease, harsh commanders, long campaigns. But they rarely worried about whether the Roman army itself would suddenly eliminate their profession next month. Military service remained one of the most stable careers available. Stability changes how people think. When tomorrow feels predictable, planning becomes easier, saving becomes easier, building wealth becomes easier. Of course, Roman soldiers paid a tremendous price for that stability. Discipline was absolute. Disobedience could bring severe punishment. Desertion was considered a serious crime. Soldiers surrendered much of their personal freedom. Modern workers generally enjoy far greater individual liberty. They choose careers, they change employers, they relocate, they negotiate salaries. Roman soldiers accepted strict control over nearly every aspect of daily life. Freedom had been exchanged for security. That trade-off still exists today. Some people willingly accept highly structured careers because they value financial stability. Others accept uncertainty in exchange for greater personal freedom. Neither choice is automatically right or wrong. But Rome demonstrates something fascinating. Financial security often requires sacrifice. The Roman soldier sacrificed comfort, time, freedom, family life, personal choice. In return, he received stability. Today, millions of people enjoy extraordinary freedom. Yet many struggle to achieve the same level of financial certainty. So perhaps the comparison isn't really about who earned more money. Perhaps it's about what each society chose to value. Rome valued discipline, order, and long-term service. Modern society often values flexibility, convenience, and unlimited consumer choice. Both systems create winners. Both systems create problems, but there is one final comparison that may be the most surprising of all. Because if we calculate not just how much Roman soldiers earned, but how much they could actually keep, the answer may completely change the way you think about wealth forever. At the end of every month, one simple question determines whether a person is becoming wealthier or poorer. how much money is left, not how much you earned, not how impressive your salary looks, not how expensive your house is, not how new your car is. The only number that truly matters is what remains after every bill has been paid. This is where the comparison between modern workers and Roman soldiers becomes incredibly interesting. Imagine two people. The first earns the equivalent of $5,000 every month. The second earns only $2,000. Most people would immediately assume the first person is wealthier. But now imagine that the first person spends $4,900 every month just to maintain their lifestyle. The second person spends only $1,000. Suddenly everything changes. The first person saves almost nothing. The second person saves half of their income. Who is actually building wealth? The answer is obvious. History repeatedly teaches us that income alone never creates financial security. Savings do, assets do, ownership does. Roman soldiers understood this, even if they never used modern financial terminology. Many completed years of service with savings they could invest in land, businesses, or farming. That opportunity mattered because land in the ancient world wasn't simply property, it was income. Fields produced crops, olive groves produced oil, vineyards produced wine, animals produced food, labor, and trade. Owning productive land meant your money continued working long after military service ended. Today, many people dream of financial independence. They want investments that generate passive income, rental properties, dividend stocks, businesses, retirement funds. The Roman version looked different, but the principle was exactly the same. Own something valuable. Let it produce income, reduce dependence on wages. That idea hasn't changed in 2,000 years. Another reason many Roman veterans succeeded financially was patience. Military careers lasted decades, quick riches were rare, progress came slowly, year after year, campaign after campaign, paycheck after paycheck. Modern culture often celebrates overnight success. Social media shows 20-year-old millionaires, luxury cars, private jets, perfect lifestyles, constant vacations. People begin believing wealth should arrive quickly. When it doesn't, frustration follows. The Romans had far fewer illusions. Most soldiers knew prosperity required years of discipline. They expected long-term rewards. That mindset alone created different financial behavior. Patience remains one of the greatest financial advantages anyone can possess. There is another comparison that deserves attention. Modern workers often compete against technology, artificial intelligence, automation, robotics, software. Entire professions continue changing faster than ever before. A worker can spend years mastering a skill, only to discover it has become less valuable. Roman soldiers faced different challenges. Their value depended on physical endurance, discipline, loyalty, and military experience. Those qualities usually became more valuable over time, not less. Veteran soldiers often earned greater respect than inexperienced recruits. Experience increased opportunity. Today, experience doesn't always guarantee security. Entire industries evolve too quickly. Knowledge expires faster than ever before. This creates another hidden financial burden. Constant retraining, continuous education, professional certifications, skill updates. Workers must repeatedly invest time and money simply to remain competitive. The Roman army certainly required ongoing training, but a veteran's core abilities remained useful throughout his career. Now think about something almost everyone worries about today: Inflation. The price of food rises. Housing becomes more expensive. Healthcare costs increase. Education becomes more expensive. Savings lose purchasing power. Families constantly feel like they're running faster just to stay in the same place. The Roman Empire experienced inflation too, especially during periods when emperors reduced the precious metal inside coins. People noticed. Prices changed. Confidence weakened. Economic problems followed. History reminds us that inflation isn't a modern invention, but today's interconnected global economy can spread financial shocks across continents within days. A banking crisis in one country affects markets around the world. A supply chain disruption raises prices everywhere. A pandemic changes entire economies almost overnight. Roman markets were connected. Modern markets are interconnected in ways the Romans could never imagine. That creates incredible opportunities. It also creates incredible vulnerability. Then there's perhaps the biggest difference between our world and theirs: choice. Modern consumers enjoy almost unlimited choices. Thousands of food products, thousands of clothing brands, thousands of entertainment options, unlimited online shopping. New products appear every single day. Choice is wonderful. But choice also encourages spending. Advertising constantly whispers the same message. Buy this, upgrade that, replace something that still works. The Roman soldier lived in a world with far fewer temptations. His life revolved around necessity rather than endless consumption. Ironically, having fewer choices often made saving easier. None of this means Roman life was better. It wasn't. Life expectancy was shorter. Medicine was primitive. War was brutal. Disease was common. Child mortality was heartbreaking. Modern civilization has achieved extraordinary progress. We live longer. We communicate instantly across oceans. We cure diseases that once killed millions. We enjoy freedoms unknown to most ancient societies. Yet despite all that progress, millions of hardworking people still ask a painfully familiar question. Why does it feel impossible to get ahead? That question would probably make perfect sense to a Roman soldier, because he understood something timeless. Wealth isn't measured by how much money passes through your hands. It's measured by how much remains in them, and perhaps that's the greatest lesson ancient Rome still has to teach us. Not that Roman soldiers were richer than everyone alive today. Not that ancient life was easier. But that financial security has never depended only on income. It depends on stability, discipline, savings, ownership, and keeping your expenses lower than your earnings. 2,000 years have passed. Empires have risen and fallen. Currencies have changed. Technology has transformed civilization. But that simple truth has never changed. Perhaps the real mystery isn't why a Roman soldier sometimes felt wealthier than a modern worker. Perhaps the real mystery is why, after 2,000 years of economic progress, so many of us are still fighting the same financial battle. If you asked a Roman soldier what it meant to be rich, he probably wouldn't mention marble palaces or mountains of gold. For most soldiers, wealth meant something much simpler. A full stomach, a reliable income, a piece of land after retirement, a family that could survive without fear. Those goals sound surprisingly familiar. 2,000 years have passed, yet millions of people today are still chasing exactly the same things. The difference is that the path has become far more complicated. Modern life offers endless opportunities. It also creates endless expenses. The average person today earns money through a job. But before that paycheck even reaches their bank account, part of it may already be gone. Taxes, retirement deductions, insurance, loan payments. By the time the money is available to spend, a significant portion has already disappeared. Then come the monthly bills: housing, utilities, internet, phone plans, transportation, groceries, healthcare, subscriptions, unexpected repairs. The list seems endless. For many people, financial life feels like carrying a bucket full of holes. No matter how much water you pour in, it keeps leaking out. Roman soldiers certainly had deductions from their pay. The army sometimes charged them for clothing, food, or equipment. But even after those deductions, the structure of military life protected them from many of the expenses that dominate modern budgets. That protection made an enormous difference over time. Small savings, repeated over 20 years, become large savings. History proves this again and again. Imagine saving only a little every month. At first, the amount feels insignificant. After 1 year, it looks respectable. After 20 years, it can completely transform a person's future. Roman veterans often reached retirement with exactly that advantage, not because they had discovered some ancient financial secret, but because their system naturally encouraged saving. Another important factor was community. Roman soldiers rarely lived alone. They trained together, ate together, marched together, fought together. Their daily lives revolved around shared responsibilities. Modern society often celebrates independence, living alone, working remotely, managing everything individually. Freedom has increased. But so has isolation. And isolation can become expensive. Cooking for one often costs more per meal. Living alone means paying the entire rent alone. Owning a car alone means covering every maintenance bill yourself. Shared living reduces costs. The Roman military understood this naturally. Efficiency wasn't just about discipline, it was also about economics. There is another hidden advantage that many historians point out. Routine. Every day followed a familiar rhythm. Wake up, train, work, eat. Stand guard, sleep, repeat. Routine reduces unnecessary decisions. Modern psychologists sometimes talk about decision fatigue. Every day we choose what to wear, what to eat, which route to drive, which emails deserve attention, which bills to pay first, which subscription to cancel. Thousands of small decisions quietly consume mental energy. Roman soldiers had far fewer daily choices. Life was highly structured. That structure could feel restrictive, but it also reduced chaos. Financial chaos often begins with daily habits, small purchases, impulse buying, constant upgrades, tiny expenses that seem harmless individually. Over months and years, they become surprisingly large. The Romans didn't have online shopping. They didn't receive advertisements every few minutes. Nobody encouraged them to replace perfectly functional possessions simply because a newer version had appeared. Their economy moved more slowly, consumption moved more slowly. Savings often grew more steadily. Of course, Roman soldiers weren't perfect. Many gambled, some wasted money, others spent freely during leave. Human nature hasn't changed very much. People 2,000 years ago loved entertainment, excitement, and celebration just as much as people today. The difference wasn't human behavior. The difference was opportunity. Modern consumers can spend money 24 hours a day without leaving home. One click, another click, another payment, another package arrives tomorrow. The Romans simply didn't live in that kind of world. Sometimes fewer opportunities to spend become unexpected opportunities to save. Then there is one subject almost every worker worries about today: retirement. Will there be enough money? Will investments survive market crashes? Will inflation reduce purchasing power? Will healthcare costs consume everything? These questions create enormous stress. Roman veterans worried too. But many entered retirement with land grants, cash rewards, or communities specifically established for former soldiers. The empire understood something essential. Veterans who felt abandoned could become dangerous. Veterans who felt rewarded remained loyal citizens. Financial stability wasn't only good for the individual, it was good for the state. Perhaps modern governments understand the same principle. The debate simply revolves around different methods: pensions, Social Security, healthcare, retirement accounts. Every society tries to answer the same question: how do we support people after decades of work? Rome answered it one way. Modern nations answer it another. Neither system is perfect. Both face economic pressures. But the comparison reveals something fascinating. The basic financial concerns of ordinary people have barely changed in 2,000 years. Food, housing, security, retirement, family, opportunity. These priorities remain almost identical. Technology has transformed the world. Human needs have not. And maybe that's why the story of the Roman soldier feels surprisingly modern. Because underneath the armor, behind the shields, beyond the famous battles, he was simply another worker, trying to build a better future, just like millions of people today. But there's one final piece of this puzzle that explains everything. If Roman soldiers were so financially secure, why didn't everyone become one? The answer reveals the true price of that security. And it was far higher than most people imagine. By now, the Roman soldier might sound like the luckiest employee in history. A regular salary, food, housing, medical care, retirement rewards, the possibility of land, occasional bonuses, even shares of war spoils. On paper, it almost sounds too good to be true. But every advantage came with a price. And that price was measured not only in years, but sometimes in blood. The Roman army was one of the most disciplined organizations the ancient world had ever seen. Discipline was not optional. It was absolute. Every order had to be obeyed. Every formation had to hold. Every soldier had to trust the man standing beside him. One mistake on the battlefield could destroy an entire legion. That is why Roman commanders demanded perfection. Training never truly ended. Even experienced veterans continued marching for miles, carrying heavy packs. They practiced with wooden swords that weighed more than real ones. Why? Because if you could fight with a heavier weapon during training, the real sword felt lighter in battle. Roman soldiers dug trenches, built roads, constructed bridges, raised forts, cut timber, moved stone. Many people imagine soldiers spending every day preparing for combat. The reality was different. A Roman legion was also a massive construction workforce. The empire's famous roads, forts, and defensive walls were often built by soldiers themselves. Military life was physical from sunrise until sunset. There were no weekends, no paid vacations, no flexible schedules, no working from home. Your commander decided where you slept, where you marched, when you ate, when you fought, when you rested. Compared to modern employment, personal freedom was extremely limited. Today, many workers complain about strict bosses. Roman soldiers served under officers who could impose severe punishments for disobedience. The standards were unforgiving. Yet this harsh discipline created something remarkable. Trust. Imagine standing in the middle of a battlefield. Thousands of enemy warriors are charging directly towards you. Dust fills the air. The sound of shields crashing together echoes across the valley. Fear grips every soldier. At that moment, nothing matters more than knowing the man beside you will not run away. Roman discipline created that confidence. Each soldier depended completely on the others. That trust made Roman legions legendary. It also explains why emperors invested so heavily in maintaining them. But even the strongest army could not escape one invisible enemy: disease. In fact, throughout history, disease often killed more soldier than combat itself. Campaigns carried armies into unfamiliar climates. Clean drinking water was not always available. Sanitation varied from place to place. Infections spread quickly. Entire military camps could become sick within days. Modern medicine has dramatically reduced many of these dangers. Today, antibiotics cure infections that would have been fatal in the ancient world. Vaccines prevent diseases that once devastated entire populations. Emergency surgery saves lives that Roman doctors could never have imagined saving. When comparing wealth, we should never forget these advantages. Modern civilization has given us extraordinary improvements in health and life expectancy. No amount of Roman silver could buy antibiotics. No retirement reward could replace modern surgery. This reminds us that financial wealth is only one part of a good life. Health matters just as much, perhaps even more. Still, the economic comparison remains fascinating, because while we have gained incredible medical technology, many people have also gained medical debt. Healthcare expenses have become one of the largest financial burdens in many countries. One serious illness can erase years of savings. Roman medicine was primitive. Modern medicine is miraculous. But miracles sometimes come with enormous bills. There is another sacrifice Roman soldiers accepted: distance. Many recruits left home for years, sometimes decades. They served on frontiers hundreds or even thousands of miles from their birthplace. Some guarded Britain's northern border. Others stood watch beside the Rhine River. Some served in the deserts of Syria. Others crossed mountains, forests, and rivers they had never imagined existed. Letters traveled slowly. Families waited months for news. Some never saw their loved ones again. Today, technology has transformed communication. Video calls connect families instantly. Messages cross oceans in seconds. Flights shorten journeys that once took months. Modern workers often complain about business travel. Roman soldiers lived it for years at a time. The empire demanded sacrifice, and soldiers gave it willingly because they believed the rewards justified the cost. While some sought adventure, some sought steady income, others escaped poverty. Many simply wanted a better future than the one they had been born into. That motivation sounds surprisingly familiar. Millions of people today leave their hometowns for exactly the same reasons: better jobs, higher wages, greater opportunities. History changes, human ambition remains remarkably constant. There was one more thing every Roman soldier understood. Nothing was guaranteed. A single battle could end everything. A single disease, a single accident, a single campaign. The future always remained uncertain. Perhaps that uncertainty encouraged them to value each paycheck more carefully. Perhaps it encouraged saving whenever possible. No one knew whether another campaign would be their last. That awareness shaped financial behavior. Modern life often creates a different illusion. We assume tomorrow will always arrive, next month, next year, next decade. We postpone saving, delay investing, spend first, plan later. The Romans could not afford such assumptions. Life reminded them constantly of its uncertainty. Ironically, recognizing life's fragility sometimes made them better prepared for the future. And maybe that's one of the greatest lessons hidden inside this entire story. The Roman soldier wasn't richer because he lived in a better world. He lived in a harder world. But hardship forced discipline. Discipline created stability. Stability created opportunity. And opportunity created wealth. Yet one question still remains. If you took an ordinary Roman soldier and placed him into the modern world, would he still become financially successful? Or has our world become so different that even Rome's greatest financial habits would no longer be enough? The answer may surprise you. Imagine just for a moment that a Roman legionary suddenly wakes up in the 21st century. He opens his eyes and sees skyscrapers stretching into the clouds. Cars race across highways faster than any horse he has ever seen. Airplanes cross the sky. People speak to invisible devices in their pockets. At first, he would probably believe he had entered the world of the gods. Everything around him would seem impossible. But after the shock faded, he would begin asking questions. Where do people get their food? How do they earn money? Where do they sleep? How much does it cost to live here? And that is when his amazement might slowly turn into confusion. He would discover that modern workers produce more wealth than any generation in human history. Factories can manufacture in a single day what ancient craftsmen could not produce in a lifetime. Farmers feed millions using machines instead of hand tools. Technology has multiplied human productivity beyond anything Rome ever imagined. Yet despite all of this abundance, millions of people still struggle to save money. To the Roman soldier, that would seem strange. He would ask a simple question. If your society is so rich, why are so many of its people financially anxious? It would be a difficult question to answer. Perhaps we would explain housing prices, healthcare costs, student loans, inflation, taxes, insurance, retirement savings, economic uncertainty. He would listen carefully. Then he might ask another question. How much of your income actually belongs to you? That question cuts straight to the heart of modern financial life. Many people know exactly how much they earn each month. Far fewer know how much they truly keep. The Roman soldier would probably understand that difference immediately. His entire military career depended on managing what remained after deductions. He knew that wealth grew slowly, coin by coin, year by year. Modern society often encourages a different mindset. Spend now, pay later, upgrade today, finance tomorrow. The Roman would likely find this philosophy deeply confusing. Debt, in his world, was something to approach with caution. In ours, it has become almost ordinary. He might also notice something else. People today own far more possessions than ancient Romans ever did. Closets filled with clothes, garages filled with tools, drawers full of forgotten electronics, homes packed with objects purchased years earlier. Yet, despite owning more than any previous civilization, many people still feel they don't have enough. The Roman soldier might quietly wonder whether wealth and satisfaction have drifted apart. History suggests they sometimes do. There is another lesson he would probably recognize immediately: discipline. Every successful Roman legion depended on discipline. Every soldier understood that small daily actions eventually decided the outcome of great battles. March correctly every day. Maintain your equipment every day. Follow orders every day. The victories came later. Financial success works in much the same way. Save consistently, avoid unnecessary debt, spend carefully, invest patiently. The results rarely appear overnight, but years later they become impossible to ignore. The Romans did not invent this principle, they simply lived by it. Perhaps that is why their empire endured for centuries. Of course, Rome eventually fell. No empire lasts forever. Economic problems grew. Political instability increased. Civil wars drained resources. Inflation weakened the currency. Corruption spread. Military expenses became increasingly difficult to sustain. The system that had once created extraordinary stability slowly began to break apart. That part of the story matters just as much, because no financial system remains strong forever. Ancient Rome reminds us that prosperity requires constant maintenance. Ignore debt for too long. Problems grow. Ignore inflation. Savings lose value. Ignore political stability. Markets lose confidence. Ignore productive investment. Growth slows. These lessons remain remarkably relevant today. Modern economies may use digital banking instead of silver coins, but the underlying principles have changed very little. Strong institutions create confidence. Confidence encourages investment. Investment creates prosperity. Prosperity supports society. Rome understood this cycle. Modern nations still depend on it. So, was the Roman soldier actually richer than you? The answer isn't simply yes, and it isn't simply no. If you compare technology, healthcare, education, communication, entertainment, and personal freedom, modern life wins by an overwhelming margin. There is no serious comparison, but if you compare financial stability, predictable expenses, guaranteed housing, long-term security, retirement incentives, and the ability to save a meaningful portion of income, some Roman soldiers enjoyed advantages that millions of modern workers would gladly accept. Perhaps the better question was never, who had more money? The better question is this: who worried less about tomorrow? That single question may reveal more about wealth than any salary ever could. History doesn't tell us to envy ancient Rome. It tells us to learn from it. Because sometimes the greatest financial lessons are not hidden inside modern investment books. They are waiting in the footsteps of a soldier who marched beneath the Roman eagle 2,000 years ago. And perhaps that is the greatest irony of all. The Roman soldier never owned a smartphone, never drove a car, never used electricity, never saw an airplane. Yet in one very important way, he understood something about wealth that many of us are still trying to learn. There is an old saying that wealth is not measured by what you earn, but by what you can afford to ignore. A wealthy person doesn't panic every time an unexpected bill arrives. A financially secure family doesn't wonder whether they can buy groceries next week. Real wealth creates peace of mind. And peace of mind is something every civilization has searched for. The Romans were no different. For an ordinary Roman soldier, life was filled with uncertainty on the battlefield. But away from combat, the structure of military life removed many of the financial uncertainties that dominate modern living. That distinction is important. The danger came from war. The stability came from the system. Today, for many people, the situation is almost reversed. Physical safety has improved dramatically. Most people do not expect to fight in wars. Life expectancy is longer. Medicine is better. Technology makes daily tasks easier. Yet financial uncertainty has become a constant companion. Many workers lie awake at night thinking about bills instead of battles. They worry about layoffs instead of invading armies. They fear inflation instead of enemy cavalry. The threats have changed. The anxiety has not. One of the greatest differences between the Roman world and ours is the pace of life. The Roman Empire moved slowly. News traveled by horse or ship. A message could take weeks to reach another province. Markets changed gradually. Careers changed gradually. Entire generations often lived much like the generations before them. Modern life moves at breathtaking speed. News circles the globe in seconds. Stock markets react instantly. Jobs appear and disappear within months. Entire industries can be transformed by a single technological breakthrough. This speed creates opportunity, but it also creates pressure. People constantly feel that they are falling behind. A new phone appears, a new software update arrives, a new trend dominates social media. A new skill becomes essential for employment. Keeping up has become a full-time job. The Roman soldier would find this exhausting. His world rewarded consistency. Our world often rewards constant adaptation. Neither system is perfect. But they produce very different kinds of stress. Another fascinating comparison is ownership. Roman soldiers dreamed of owning land because land represented independence. A small farm could feed a family. Extra crops could be sold. Livestock could multiply. The land continued producing year after year. Today, many people dream of owning a home for remarkably similar reasons, not simply because it provides shelter, but because ownership creates stability. Rent payments disappear forever. Ownership builds equity. Future generations inherit something valuable. Although the economy has changed, the human desire for security has not. Perhaps that explains why housing remains one of the most emotional financial topics in every country. The Roman soldier understood something else that modern investors still discuss today: diversification. Of course, he didn't use that word. But after retirement, many veterans did not depend on one single source of income. They farmed, they traded, some entered local government, others managed businesses. Multiple income sources increase stability. Today, financial advisors recommend something very similar. Don't rely on only one paycheck if possible. Build investments. Create passive income. Develop additional skills. The advice sounds modern. The principle is ancient. Then there's the question of happiness. Would a Roman soldier have considered himself happy? Sometimes, sometimes not. Victory brought celebration. Defeat brought grief. Long campaigns created loneliness. Returning home created joy. Life contained both hardship and hope, exactly like ours. Modern society sometimes assumes that happiness automatically increases with wealth. History rarely supports that idea. Money solves many problems, but not every problem. The richest Roman senators still worried about politics. Powerful generals feared assassination. Emperors themselves often lived surrounded by suspicion. Financial security improves life. It does not eliminate uncertainty. Perhaps that is why philosophers throughout Roman history spoke so often about contentment. They understood that endless desire creates endless dissatisfaction. Modern psychology often reaches the same conclusion. Gratitude and discipline frequently produce greater long-term happiness than endless consumption. The Roman soldier probably never imagined that people living 2,000 years in the future would compare their finances to his. He would likely be surprised. After all, from his perspective, he lived in a harsh world. A world of dust, steel, marches, cold nights, and dangerous frontiers. Yet history has a remarkable way of revealing unexpected truths. Sometimes progress creates new problems while solving old ones. Sometimes comfort hides invisible burdens. Sometimes higher income hides even higher expenses. Perhaps that is why the question we began with remains so powerful. Why am I poorer than a Roman soldier? Not because Roman soldiers lived luxurious lives. Not because ancient Rome was a perfect society. But because their financial system reminds us of a timeless principle. Wealth is not about appearing rich. It is about living securely. The Roman soldier understood that. The challenge for us is remembering it. As our journey continues, we'll discover one final lesson hidden inside the rise and fall of Rome. A lesson that may be even more valuable today than it was 2,000 years ago, because every empire eventually disappears. But the rules of building personal wealth have hardly changed at all. History has a strange habit of repeating itself. The names change, the borders change, the currencies change. But human behavior remains remarkably familiar. People still work hard. They still dream of a better future. They still worry about paying their bills. And they still wonder whether all their effort will eventually be enough. If a Roman soldier could sit beside a modern office worker, factory employee, nurse, teacher, engineer, or delivery driver, they would live in completely different worlds. One carried a shield. The other carries a smartphone. One marched across Europe. The other commutes through city traffic. One was paid in silver coins. The other is paid through digital banking. Everything appears different. Yet if they started talking about money, the conversation might become surprisingly familiar. Both would understand the frustration of rising prices. Both would know the importance of saving whenever possible. Both would want a secure future for their families. Both would hope that years of hard work would eventually bring peace rather than endless struggle. This reminds us that financial anxiety is not a modern invention. Every generation has faced it in one form or another. The difference lies in how societies choose to deal with it. Rome invested heavily in its military because the empire believed stability created prosperity. Modern societies invest in many different systems: education, healthcare, technology, infrastructure, scientific research, public services. Each reflects different priorities. Neither world was perfect. Rome had slavery, political violence, and brutal wars. The modern world has inequality, debt, inflation, and economic uncertainty. Every age solves some problems while creating new ones. Perhaps the greatest mistake we can make is imagining that any period in history was completely better than another. Instead, history invites comparison, not to romanticize the past, but to understand the present. When people hear that a Roman soldier may have enjoyed greater financial stability than many workers today, the goal is not to glorify ancient Rome. It is to ask an uncomfortable question. Why has extraordinary technological progress not always produced extraordinary financial security? Why do so many people earning more money than ever before still feel trapped? Part of the answer lies in expectations. Every generation defines enough differently. A Roman soldier hoped for reliable food, safe shelter, and land after retirement. Many people today hope for larger homes, newer cars, expensive vacations, premium electronics, and constant upgrades. There is nothing wrong with ambition. Progress depends on ambition. But expectations often grow faster than income. When that happens, satisfaction becomes increasingly difficult to achieve. Economists sometimes call this the hedonic treadmill. As living standards improve, people quickly become accustomed to them. What once felt luxurious soon feels ordinary. Then new desires appear. The cycle never ends. The Roman soldier experienced this far less intensely. His world changed slowly. His expectations remained relatively stable. That doesn't mean he was happier. It simply means he lived under different psychological pressures. Another lesson comes from time itself. The Roman army rewarded patience. A recruit did not expect immediate wealth. He expected years of discipline before meaningful rewards arrived. Modern culture often celebrates speed. Fast success, fast profits, fast careers, fast results. But history repeatedly shows that lasting wealth usually grows slowly. Businesses take years to mature. Investments compound over decades. Skills improve through consistent practice. The Roman soldier may never have heard the phrase long-term thinking, yet he lived it every day. Perhaps that is why his financial story still resonates today. Then there is resilience. Rome survived countless crises. Civil wars, economic downturns, foreign invasions, political assassinations, natural disasters. Yet for centuries, the empire adapted. Individual soldiers learned the same lesson. Campaigns rarely unfolded as planned. Weather changed, supplies failed. Commanders made mistakes. Victory required flexibility. Modern financial life demands similar resilience. Markets rise and fall. Jobs change. Industries evolve. Unexpected expenses appear without warning. The people who recover most successfully are often not those who earn the most. They are the ones who adapt the best. That lesson is as relevant today as it was beneath the Roman eagle. So, are you really poorer than a Roman soldier? If we measure technology, education, healthcare, freedom, communication, and opportunity, almost certainly not. Modern civilization has achieved astonishing progress. But if we measure financial stability, predictable expenses, long-term security, the ability to save consistently, freedom from overwhelming debt, then the comparison becomes far more complicated. And perhaps that complexity is exactly why this question has fascinated historians for so many years. The Roman soldier reminds us that wealth has never been defined by money alone. It has always been defined by what money allows people to do. To eat without fear, to sleep under a safe roof, to care for a family, to prepare for old age, to face tomorrow with confidence instead of anxiety. Those goals remain timeless. Empires rise, empires fall, coins become paper. Paper becomes digital numbers on a screen. Technology transforms civilization beyond recognition. Yet the search for financial security remains exactly where it has always been. Inside the lives of ordinary people. And perhaps, after all these centuries, that ordinary Roman soldier still has one final message for us. Don't chase the appearance of wealth. Build the foundation of it. Because history remembers empires, but everyday people remember something far more important. The simple comfort of knowing that tomorrow will be okay. By this point, you might be asking yourself a completely different question. What if the Roman soldier wasn't actually wealthier? What if he was simply living in a system designed differently from ours? That may be the most important realization of all. When historians compare ancient Rome with the modern world, they are not saying Roman citizens enjoyed a higher standard of living. They clearly did not. They had no refrigeration, no electricity, no modern sanitation in many places, no antibiotics, no internet, no airplanes, no smartphones, no universities like the ones we know today. Modern civilization has transformed nearly every aspect of human life for the better. So why does the comparison continue to fascinate economists and historians? Because it forces us to separate wealth from lifestyle. Those two words sound similar, but they mean very different things. Lifestyle is about what surrounds you. Wealth is about what supports you. A person can own the newest phone, drive a luxury car, wear expensive clothes, and still be one missed paycheck away from financial disaster. Another person may live a far simpler life, while quietly building savings, owning assets, and carrying little or no debt. Which one is truly wealthier? The Romans would probably answer without hesitation. The second one. This idea wasn't unique to soldiers. Roman philosophers often wrote about moderation. They warned against allowing possessions to control a person's life. The Stoic philosophers, in particular, believed that chasing endless luxury created endless dissatisfaction. They argued that freedom came not from owning everything, but from needing less. Whether or not we agree with them, their words feel surprisingly relevant today. Modern advertising rarely encourages satisfaction. Its purpose is exactly the opposite. It convinces us that we are incomplete. A better watch, a newer car, a larger house, a more expensive vacation, another subscription, another upgrade. The cycle never truly ends. The Roman soldier certainly wanted a better life. He wanted land, security, respect, a comfortable retirement. But his daily environment encouraged practicality rather than constant consumption. Perhaps that difference explains why many veterans managed to leave military service with meaningful savings. Another fascinating comparison involves work itself. Today, many people identify themselves by their careers. What do you do? It's often the first question strangers ask. Career becomes identity. Success becomes status. Failure becomes deeply personal. Roman soldiers certainly took pride in their profession, but their identity centered on service. They belonged to something larger than themselves, the legion, the empire, their comrades. That shared purpose created extraordinary loyalty. It also reduced one of the pressures many modern workers experience: constant competition. Today's economy rewards individual achievement. Promotions, bonuses, performance reviews, professional rankings, social media comparisons. The Roman army rewarded teamwork above almost everything else. An individual hero could not win a battle alone. The formation mattered more than the individual. That lesson still applies beyond the battlefield. Strong communities often create stronger financial outcomes. Families support one another. Friends share opportunities. Networks create businesses. Communities build resilience. No one becomes successful entirely alone. The Roman soldier understood this because his survival literally depended on the men standing beside him. There is another hidden cost of modern life: time. Ironically, despite all our technology, many people feel they have less free time than ever before. Emails arrive 24 hours a day. Phones never stop ringing. Messages demand immediate responses. Work often follows people home. Vacations become opportunities to check office emails. The boundary between work and personal life continues to blur. Roman soldiers worked incredibly hard. Their days were physically exhausting. But when camp settled for the night, there were no smartphones, no endless notifications, no constant stream of digital information. Rest actually meant rest. That distinction may matter more than we realize. Mental exhaustion carries financial consequences too. Tired people often make poor decisions. Impulse purchases increase. Planning becomes harder. Stress affects health. Health affects productivity. Everything becomes connected. Modern civilization has created extraordinary convenience. It has also created unprecedented distraction. Perhaps the Roman soldier would notice this before anything else. He would see thousands of people staring into glowing screens while walking through crowded streets. He would see restaurants full of silent families looking at phones instead of each other. He would see advertisements following people everywhere they go. He would probably find it astonishing. Then he might ask one final question. If all these inventions were supposed to save time, why does everyone seem so busy? That question may be impossible to answer completely, because every technological revolution changes how people spend their lives. Sometimes it gives us more freedom. Sometimes it quietly fills every empty moment. Rome could never imagine our world. Likewise, we often misunderstand theirs. The truth lies somewhere in the middle. The Roman soldier was neither richer nor poorer in every possible way. He simply lived under a completely different definition of prosperity. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson history offers. Every society defines success differently. Some measure it by gold, some by land, some by technology, some by happiness, some by freedom. The challenge is deciding which definition truly matters. Because once you answer that question, you begin to understand why the comparison between yourself and a Roman soldier has survived for nearly 2,000 years, and why it still sparks debate today. Take one last look at the Roman soldier, not as the fearless warrior standing beneath the golden eagle, not as the disciplined legionary marching across Europe, not as the man carrying a sword and shield into battle. Instead, look at him as an ordinary worker, because that is what he really was. He woke up early, he followed orders, he completed difficult tasks, he worried about the future. He hoped his hard work would eventually provide a better life. In that sense, he was not so different from millions of people alive today. The centuries between us may seem enormous, but human dreams have changed very little. Everyone wants security. Everyone wants dignity. Everyone wants enough income to stop worrying about tomorrow. Perhaps that explains why this comparison feels so personal. It is not really about Rome, it is about us. It forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. Why do so many people work harder than ever before, yet still struggle to build wealth? Why does economic growth not always create financial security? Why do rising salaries often disappear beneath rising expenses? The Roman soldier cannot answer these questions for us, but his life offers clues. He reminds us that financial stability rarely comes from income alone. It comes from discipline, predictable expenses, long-term planning, saving consistently, owning productive assets, avoiding unnecessary debt, thinking years ahead instead of weeks ahead. These lessons are timeless. Technology has changed. Human nature has not. The Roman Empire eventually disappeared. Its roads cracked, its borders collapsed, its emperors faded into history, its currency lost value, its armies vanished. But But the financial principles that helped ordinary soldiers build stable lives survived. Every generation rediscovers them. Spend less than you earn. Prepare for uncertainty. Build something that lasts. Think long term. Protect what you own. Value stability more than appearances. These ideas sound simple. They always have. The challenge has never been understanding them. The challenge has always been following them. Modern life makes that more difficult. Advertisements encourage spending. Social media encourages comparison. Credit encourages borrowing. Convenience encourages impulse buying. Every day, countless voices compete for our attention and our wallets. The Roman soldier faced temptations too, but not on the same scale. His greatest challenges came from survival. Ours often come from consumption. That may be the biggest difference between our worlds. Today's economy rewards spending. Rome's military rewarded restraint. Neither system is completely right. Neither is completely wrong. Both reflect the priorities of their age. So, are you poorer than a Roman soldier? If the question is about technology, no. If it is about healthcare, no. If it is about education, no. If it is about personal freedom, no. If it is about entertainment, absolutely not. But if the question is whether many Roman soldiers enjoyed greater financial certainty than countless modern workers, history suggests the answer is sometimes yes. Not because they earned extraordinary salaries, not because life was easy, not because ancient Rome was some lost paradise, but because the structure of their lives allowed many of them to keep more of what they earned. And in the end, that may be the simplest definition of wealth. Not how much money enters your hands, but how much remains there. Perhaps that is why this story continues to fascinate people around the world. It challenges one of our deepest assumptions. We assume that because we live in the future, every part of our lives must automatically be better than the past. History quietly reminds us that progress is rarely so simple. We gain new advantages, we create new problems, we solve old struggles, we invent new ones. Every generation inherits both blessings and burdens. The Roman soldier carried armor weighing more than 20 kilograms. We carry mortgages. He feared enemy spears. We fear unexpected bills. He marched across continents. We sit in traffic. He counted silver coins. We check banking apps. The details have changed. The human experience has not. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. History is not merely a collection of old stories. It is a mirror. When we look carefully enough, we often discover ourselves staring back. The Roman soldier's world disappeared nearly 2,000 years ago, yet his story continues to ask us a question that remains as powerful today as it was then. What does it truly mean to be wealthy? Every generation must answer that question for itself. And perhaps your answer will matter far more than the size of your paycheck. For most of history, ordinary people never expected life to be easy. They expected it to be difficult. The Roman soldier certainly did. Every sunrise brought another challenge, another march, another assignment, another order, another day of discipline. Yet despite all those hardships, many soldiers carried something that millions of modern workers struggle to find: confidence in tomorrow. Not because they believed nothing bad could happen. They knew better than anyone that life could change in an instant. A battle could begin without warning. A disease could spread through the camp. A commander could order a march across mountains or deserts. Nothing about military life was comfortable. But there was a difference between danger and uncertainty. Danger was everywhere. Financial uncertainty was often less severe. That distinction shaped the way Roman soldiers viewed the future. When your food is supplied, when your shelter is provided, when your salary arrives regularly, when retirement rewards have been promised, planning becomes possible. Modern workers often face a different reality. The future feels unpredictable. Housing prices rise faster than wages. Inflation quietly reduces purchasing power. Entire industries evolve overnight. Technology creates opportunities while simultaneously replacing old careers. People save for retirement, while wondering whether their savings will still be enough decades later. The modern world has solved countless ancient problems, yet it has created entirely new financial puzzles. Perhaps that is why this comparison refuses to disappear, because it forces us to separate comfort from security. Comfort surrounds us every day. Electric lights, hot showers, air conditioning, instant communication, streaming entertainment, food delivered directly to our homes. Ancient Rome could not imagine such conveniences. But convenience and security are not the same thing. A person can enjoy incredible convenience while living under constant financial stress. Likewise, someone can live simply while feeling completely secure about tomorrow. The Roman soldier reminds us that these are different forms of wealth. There is another lesson hidden within his story: purpose. Roman soldiers rarely questioned why the army existed. Its mission was obvious: protect the empire, defend the borders, maintain peace, expand Roman authority. Every difficult day contributed to a larger goal. Modern work often feels different. Many employees struggle to see the purpose behind endless meetings, reports, deadlines, and targets. They work hard, but they sometimes wonder whether their work truly matters. Purpose has economic value. People who believe their work matters often remain more motivated during difficult times. Roman commanders understood this instinctively. Military ceremonies celebrated achievement. Victories were remembered. Veterans earned respect. The army gave meaning to sacrifice. Modern organizations try to achieve something similar through company culture, recognition programs, and career development. Sometimes they succeed, sometimes they do not. The need itself, however, remains timeless. People do not work only for money, they also work for meaning, and meaning can become a powerful source of resilience. Then there is legacy. A Roman soldier hoped that after years of service his family would inherit something lasting: land, property, reputation, opportunity. Most modern workers want exactly the same thing: Parents save so their children can study. Families purchase homes hoping future generations will benefit. Investments are built not only for today's comfort, but for tomorrow's security. The language has changed. The dream has not. Perhaps this explains why Roman history still feels surprisingly familiar. Beneath the armor, behind the battles, beyond the famous emperors, there were ordinary men trying to create better futures. History often remembers kings, but civilizations are built by workers, farmers, builders, merchants, teachers, craftsmen, and soldiers. The Roman Empire did not become powerful because of one extraordinary emperor. It became powerful because millions of ordinary people performed extraordinary amounts of ordinary work. The same remains true today. Every modern nation depends upon people whose names history will never record. Drivers deliver food, engineers build bridges, doctors save lives, teachers educate children, factory workers manufacture products, construction crews raise cities into the sky. Their work keeps civilization moving. The Roman soldier would recognize that immediately. He knew empires depended upon ordinary people doing difficult jobs every single day. Perhaps that is why his story continues to resonate across 2,000 years. Because ultimately, this has never been a story about Rome. It has never really been a story about ancient military salaries. It has always been a story about a question every generation eventually asks. I work hard, so why doesn't it feel like enough? The Roman soldier cannot answer that question completely. No historian can. No economist can. But history offers perspective. It reminds us that financial struggles are not signs of personal failure. They are often reflections of the economic systems people live within. Understanding those systems is the first step toward understanding ourselves. And perhaps that understanding is more valuable than any amount of silver a Roman soldier ever carried. As we come closer to the end of this journey, it becomes clear that this story was never really about comparing bank accounts across 2,000 years. It was about understanding what money actually does. Money buys food. Money buys shelter. Money buys security. But beyond a certain point, money begins to buy something far less visible. Freedom. The freedom to say no to a job you hate. The freedom to survive an unexpected emergency. The freedom to take care of your family. The freedom to plan years ahead instead of worrying about next week. That kind of freedom has always been rare. The Roman soldier searched for it. Modern workers search for it. Future generations will search for it as well. History changes. Human priorities do not. If you looked inside a Roman military camp at sunset, you would probably find soldiers repairing equipment, sharing stories, eating simple meals, and preparing for another demanding day. There were no glowing city skylines, no social media, no financial news channels, no investment apps, no digital banking. Yet conversations around the campfire probably sounded surprisingly familiar. How much longer until retirement? Will the next campaign be dangerous? Will the emperor keep his promises? What kind of life waits after military service? Those questions reveal something timeless. People have always worried about the future. The future has always been uncertain. The methods of managing uncertainty are what change. For Rome, the answer was military organization, discipline, and imperial wealth. For the modern world, the answers include education, technology, investments, insurance, and global financial systems. Neither solution removes uncertainty completely. Both simply attempt to reduce it. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson hidden inside this comparison. No society has ever eliminated financial anxiety. It only changes its form. The Roman soldier feared missing the rewards promised after years of service. Modern workers worry about retirement funds keeping pace with inflation. The Roman soldier depended on the strength of the empire. Modern workers depend on the strength of the economy. Different systems. The same hope. A secure tomorrow. There is another truth history quietly teaches us. Every empire eventually believed its prosperity would last forever. The Romans believed their empire was unstoppable. Its roads connected continents. Its armies defeated powerful enemies. Its cities flourished. Its trade reached distant lands. From their perspective, Rome seemed permanent. Yet history tells a different story. Economic pressure increased, political instability spread, borders became harder to defend. The cost of maintaining the empire grew larger every generation. Eventually, the system that had once appeared invincible began to weaken. This should not make us pessimistic. Instead, it should make us thoughtful. Strong economies require constant care. Strong institutions require trust. Strong societies require productive workers. These principles never become outdated. Whether we live in ancient Rome or the 21st century, prosperity cannot simply be inherited. It must be maintained. One decision at a time, one generation at a time. Perhaps that is why history remains so valuable. It reminds us that every civilization faces choices. Spend or save. Consume or invest. Think only about today, or prepare for tomorrow. The Roman soldier lived with those choices. So do we. And perhaps without realizing it, we fight financial battles that are not so different from his. Not with swords, not with shields, but with budgets, mortgages, savings accounts, retirement plans, career decisions. The battlefield has changed. The struggle for stability has not. As this story approaches its conclusion, one final question remains. If you had the chance to trade places with a Roman soldier, would you? Almost certainly not. Modern medicine alone makes that choice impossible. The opportunities available today far exceed anything the ancient world could offer. But would you borrow a few lessons from him? His discipline, his patience, his willingness to think long term, his understanding that wealth grows slowly rather than overnight. Those lessons have survived every empire, every currency, every technological revolution, because they are not Roman lessons. They are human lessons. And perhaps they matter today more than ever before. There is one comparison we have not explored yet. Time. Not time measured by clocks, but time measured by life itself. Every Roman soldier knew exactly what his service demanded. Years of discipline, years of sacrifice, years of marching beneath the eagle. Every sunrise brought him one day closer to retirement, one day closer to receiving the rewards he had worked so hard to earn. There was a finish line. That finish line gave meaning to every difficult day. Modern life often feels different. Many people work without seeing a clear destination. Retirement ages continue changing. Living costs continue rising. Inflation slowly reduces the value of savings. New financial responsibilities appear every year. Sometimes it feels as though the finish line keeps moving further away. That uncertainty changes how people think. It changes how they spend. It changes how they dream. The Roman soldier certainly faced uncertainty. He could lose his life in battle tomorrow, but if he survived, his path remained relatively clear. Complete your service, receive your reward. Begin a new chapter. Simple. Modern financial planning is rarely simple. Investment portfolios, retirement accounts, taxes, insurance, mortgage rates, market volatility, global recessions, artificial intelligence, changing industries, economic crises spreading across continents. Our financial lives have become incredibly sophisticated. They have also become incredibly complicated. The Roman soldier would probably struggle to understand stock markets, just as we struggle to imagine spending 20 years defending a distant frontier. Yet both worlds ask the same question. How can ordinary people build extraordinary security? Perhaps the answer has never changed. Work honestly, spend carefully, save consistently, think long-term, protect what you build. These ideas survived the fall of Rome because they were never dependent upon Rome itself. They belong to every civilization. There is another lesson hidden inside the Roman military that deserves attention. No legion could survive if every soldier thought only about himself. Victory depended upon cooperation. Each shield protected not only its owner, but the soldier standing beside him. When one line weakened, the entire formation became vulnerable. Modern economies work in remarkably similar ways. Businesses depend upon customers. Workers depend upon employers. Governments depend upon taxpayers. Communities depend upon trust. Financial systems function best when people cooperate rather than compete blindly. Rome understood this through military discipline. Modern societies understand it through institutions, different methods. The same principle. Then there is gratitude. History often encourages perspective. When we compare ourselves with the Roman soldier, it becomes easy to focus only on what he had. Stable housing, reliable food, retirement rewards. But perspective also reminds us what we have. Modern surgery, safe childbirth, instant communication, global education, scientific knowledge, rights and freedoms unavailable to most ancient people. We should not romanticize the past, nor should we ignore its lessons. Instead, we should appreciate both. The Roman soldier teaches us discipline. The modern world offers opportunity. Perhaps true prosperity comes from combining the two. Imagine possessing the determination of a Roman legionary, with the knowledge available today. Imagine applying ancient patience to modern investing, ancient discipline to modern careers, ancient resilience to modern challenges. That combination would be incredibly powerful. In the end, perhaps the comparison was never meant to produce a winner. It was meant to produce understanding. History is not a competition between centuries. It is a conversation across time. The Roman soldier has spoken. Now the question belongs to us. What kind of financial future are we building? Will future generations look back at our choices with admiration or with confusion? Only time will answer that question. Until then, the footsteps of an ordinary Roman soldier continue to echo through history, reminding us that while civilizations change, the principles of building a secure life remain remarkably timeless. We began this journey with a question that sounded almost impossible. Why am I poorer than a Roman soldier? At first, the idea seemed absurd. After all, we live in an age of incredible technology. We travel farther, communicate faster, and live longer than any generation before us. We hold more knowledge in a single smartphone than the greatest libraries of the ancient world. Surely that means we must be wealthier. In many ways we are. Our quality of life is extraordinary compared to that of the ancient world. We enjoy medical treatments the Romans could never have imagined. We drink clean water, flip a switch to light our homes, travel across continents in hours instead of months, and speak with someone on the other side of the planet instantly. These are achievements beyond comparison. But as we explored the life of the Roman soldier, another truth slowly emerged. Comfort and financial security are not the same thing. A Roman legionary lived under constant physical danger. He marched through snow-covered mountains and scorching deserts. He carried armor weighing more than 20 kilograms. He built roads, bridges, and forts with his own hands. He obeyed strict discipline every single day. He could be sent to the edge of the empire without warning. He might never return home. No modern worker should envy those hardships. And yet, that same soldier often enjoyed something many people today desperately seek: a predictable life. His basic needs were largely provided. His salary arrived regularly. His expenses were relatively limited. His retirement carried the promise of land or financial reward. His future, while dangerous, often felt financially clearer than that of many modern workers. This doesn't mean Rome was a better place to live. Far from it. The Roman Empire was built upon inequality, conquest, slavery, political violence, and endless warfare. Millions suffered under its rule. Life expectancy was short. Disease was common. Medical knowledge was limited. Justice depended heavily upon social class. No serious historian would argue that ancient Rome offered a better overall quality of life than the modern world. But history rarely deals in simple answers. Instead, it asks better questions. Perhaps the real lesson isn't that Roman soldiers were richer. Perhaps the lesson is that financial stability has always depended more on structure than on income. Income matters, but expenses matter too. Savings matter, debt matters, planning matters, discipline matters. A person earning a modest income while spending wisely may quietly build lasting wealth. Another earning twice as much may remain trapped in an endless cycle of consumption and debt. That lesson has survived every empire in history. The Roman soldier also reminds us that wealth is not measured by appearances. A shining suit of armor did not guarantee prosperity. Neither does a luxury car today. Real wealth is often invisible. It lives inside emergency savings. It lives inside investments. It lives inside a paid-off home. It lives inside the confidence that tomorrow's bills can be paid without fear. That confidence cannot always be seen, but it can certainly be felt. History also teaches humility. Every civilization believes its way of life represents the peak of human progress. The Romans believed their empire would last forever. It did not. Future generations may someday look back at our own world with the same curiosity we reserve for ancient Rome. They may admire our achievements. They may question our choices. They may wonder why societies capable of creating artificial intelligence still struggled with housing affordability, rising debt, and financial inequality. History always asks difficult questions. Sometimes the answers are uncomfortable. Perhaps that is why studying the past remains so valuable. It reminds us that progress is never complete. Every generation solves some problems while creating others. Every age enjoys advantages previous generations could only dream about. Every age also faces challenges unique to itself. The Roman soldier had his battles. We have ours. His enemies carried swords. Ours often arrive as rising costs, inflation, debt, and uncertainty. The weapons have changed. The struggle to build a secure future has not. If there is one lasting lesson hidden inside the life of an ordinary Roman legionary, it is this: financial freedom is rarely created by luck. It is built through discipline, through patience, through consistency, through living below your means whenever possible, through preparing for tomorrow while still living today. Those principles are not Roman. They are timeless. So, are you poorer than a Roman soldier? Maybe. Maybe not. The answer depends entirely on how you define wealth. If wealth means technology, you are richer than every emperor who ever ruled Rome. If wealth means medicine, you are wealthier than the greatest physician of the ancient world. If wealth means knowledge, you carry more information in your pocket than the Library of Alexandria once contained. But if wealth means sleeping peacefully because your future feels secure, then that is a question each of us must answer for ourselves. And perhaps that is why this comparison continues to fascinate people after 2,000 years. Not because it tells us that the past was better, but because it reminds us that the true meaning of wealth has never really changed. Empires rise, empires fall, currencies appear and disappear. Technology transforms civilization. Yet one truth quietly survives every generation. The richest person is not always the one who earns the most. Sometimes It is the one who worries the least about tomorrow.